When people think of New Jersey, they think of the shore, they think of the boardwalk, they think of all these things that people want to do. This is what most people think of when they think of coming to the shore. But I'm going to take you out to the cranberry bogs of New Jersey. New Jersey used to be one of the actual top producers of cranberries, interestingly enough. Besides, it's cold out here, it's only 24 degrees. We're going to go to this little park where there's a lot of historical perspective about the cranberry farming in New Jersey. Sounds interesting. Welcome to the Double Trouble State Park, and today we're going to check out the old historic cranberry bogs right back here. I think you're going to find it really, really interesting. So this park is in a little town called Bayville, New Jersey, and it has this fascinating history sort of tied to New Jersey's cranberry industry, which, heck, I lived here part of my life. I didn't know New Jersey had a cranberry industry. But when I visited here, I realized this isn't really just about cranberries. It's a little glimpse into the history of New Jersey. It's kind of cool. When we go into the park, we're going to learn a little bit about how cranberries were grown and cultivated here in the 19th and 20th centuries, which is kind of interesting. And a little bit of it's preserved, so we'll see a little bit of the remnants of that sort of production line. As you first get here, there's this little schoolhouse. And when I say little schoolhouse, I don't know, this is the size of a good size shed that you might keep your lawnmower and your rakes and stuff in. Really, really cool. It really is a cool history seeing all of the industry that was out here in the pine barrens of central and southern New Jersey. This here is the old Burke house. You kind of see what living might have looked like for farmers back in the day. Actually pretty cool. Small, quaint little wood-framed home. So Double Trouble is not just a cool name, it actually refers to the two cranberry bogs were here, and also the trouble that the industry faced and the challenges of actually working on a cranberry farm. This farm actually kind of shows some of the unique challenges that were involved before the Industrial Revolution in the cranberry farming industry. Let's take a look at how it was done before modern machinery. Cranberries have a long history here in New Jersey. They go all the way back to the Lenape Indians who used them for both food and medicine. When the European settlers learned from them, the cranberry cultivation became sort of a significant industry here in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. And this park, Double Trouble's story, begins in the mid-19th century. Back then, the first cranberry bog farmers here at Double Trouble were the Burke family. They started cultivating cranberries in the 1860s, and they took advantage of the cleared sort of swampland left behind the lumber industry that cleared a lot of this land. In 1903, Edward Crabb purchased the land from the Burke family, and he actually formed the Double Trouble Company. He expanded these sort of cranberry operations and modernized the methods, making Double Trouble one of the largest cranberry producers here in New Jersey. Interestingly enough, the cranberry industry continued to grow over all that time, and just until the early 2000s when they actually went under and out of business. And you can just imagine life was not easy working this kind of machinery in one of the cranberry bogs. Imagine these builds fogged with cranberries, kind of ready for the harvest. And back then it was all done by hand. Can you picture the workers wading through those bogs? You know, think of that. I don't know, knee to waist deep, thigh deep in this cranberry bog, following behind one of those iron machines we just showed before. So one of the key features of cranberry growing is actually water control. This is a bog right behind me. These bogs would be flooded and they would float the cranberries, and the idea was that would protect the cranberries from frost, given that they harvest in the October time frame. If you notice right in the center of the camera here, you'll notice there's a ditch or a dike. Those intricate systems of ditches and dikes were built to control the water flow. And this was all done manually, sort of a testament to the, I don't know, the hard work and the ingenuity of the people that worked here. One of the challenges they had was maintaining the right level of water for sort of a successful harvest. They would use all kinds of control panels, or not electronic control panels, but like manual control panels that would allow water to flow in and out of these different dikes or water flow systems so they could control the amount of water in any given cranberry bog. And you can sort of see the drop off. It's probably about 8 or 10 feet down into that bog. And harvesting cranberries back in the 19th or 20th century was a really labor-intensive process. They were using those devices that I showed you up top there, that machine. They were using rakes, shovels, little hand scoops, and sometimes just their bare hands. Imagine that back-breaking work, bending over and picking up cranberries out of the bog all day long, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, as long as there was sunlight. The cranberries would be picked, packed, put on little carts, and then taken up to this cranberry packing and sorting house. And this is where families tended to work, and they would begin to sort the cranberries to find quality and get rid of the ones that were bad or crushed or rotten. A very labor-intensive process. Unfortunately, this little building is closed right now, but inside you can see some of the sorting equipment that they had. And I'll show some footage while I'm talking about this because it's an amazing process and very, very manual. Wild cranberry plants prefer sort of field meadows or bogs or stream banks, and the Native Americans used to use these, as I mentioned before, for food and medical purposes and dyes. In fact, they were the ones that first gave cranberries to the European settlers as a sign of peace and a sort of an offering. Nearly all of New Jersey's commercially grown cranberries were produced here in the actual pine barrens or pineland forests. It's kind of the ideal habitat for cranberry cultivation given the moist bog soil that they had here in this particular area. So one of the cool things I learned were these things are called cranberries today, but they were initially called craneberries. And it was because the European settlers thought that the top of the plant resembled a crane's neck, beak, and bill. Kind of interesting little historical perspective on how they got their names. These buildings behind me are kind of a reminder of the people that sort of built this industry. They were a community and they worked together, and this was sort of their farming life. It's neat that this is all preserved here at this particular park. I like the modernized roof here, but as you can see, this was a way of life in this particular time. This was the outhouse, and if you needed to use the restroom, this is kind of where you went. You didn't have plumbing in the house. Ironically enough, I remember growing up, I had an aunt and uncle that lived up in Wisconsin, and they had an outhouse behind their house. Kind of interesting. As cranberry farming became more industrialized, places like this just could no longer compete. Large, modern, more industrialized farms began to be the norm. And in the 20th century, a place like this just wasn't going to make it any longer. They really tried. As a matter of fact, for a long time, this particular bog continued to sell cranberries to Ocean Spray. However, it just didn't quite make it in the early 2000s. Fortunately, places like this, with this Double Trouble State Park, have preserved some of that New Jersey cranberry heritage, which I think is kind of cool. It's a little glimpse back into the way things were back in the day. And it's really awesome that you can look through these buildings and, you know, during the summertime they're open and you can wander through them as well, which is truly amazing. Today, cranberry farming is a very different operation. Large machines are used to harvest cranberries and the process is much, much more efficient. And while the methods have changed, the cranberry still is a vital part of the New Jersey harvest. It's just not done in farms like this these days. And places like Double Trouble have went ahead and shared or saved that heritage for us all to see. Hard-working people really busting their tail to harvest something like this. Truly amazing. This Double Trouble State Park is a hidden gem. It's kind of a place where history and nature meet. It's a bit of a reminder, like the important role that cranberries have played in the history of New Jersey. So next time you're enjoying some cranberry juice, think about the hard work and the dedication of the Burke family and all those that worked down in that wet and mucky bog to make sure you had good cranberries. Well, thanks for joining me in this little view of the cranberry history of New Jersey. I really do enjoy doing these videos. When I travel somewhere, I love to find these things that are off the beaten path, that are a little bit unique, that are things that probably not the average person might go see, but it's cool. I like learning a little bit about the places I visit. I hope you enjoy it too. Thanks a bunch. Like and subscribe, folks. We'll talk to you later. Now I'm gonna go where it's warmer. It's chilly out here.